This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Ding, 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 ding. Bruce Wolf and Carol Roth in for Dan and Amy. Well, Carol, Fox News Channel will present a town hall with 2020 Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday, April 15th from 5:30 to 6:30 Central Time in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Co-anchored by Special Reports Bret Baier. The story's Martha McCallum. The town hall will focus on the economy and jobs. We are pleased to be joined right now by the host of Special Report, Bret Baier. Good morning, Bret.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good to talk to you. And we were talking earlier about this, and we're trying to think of good questions that you could ask Bernie, because you can always use the help. Carol.
Oh, sure.
Carol is a New York Times best-selling author. She made bupkis on her book, Barely Broke Even. Could you please ask Bernie, how do you make $1 million off a book? Because that's,
yes.
Yeah, how did that happen?
And also, isn't that capitalism?
Oh!
But, no, we've got, this town hall should be interesting. It's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we'll focus on jobs and the economy, the big issues that you're hearing on the campaign trail, driven a lot by citizens' questions, voters' questions. There'll be Democrats, Independents, Republicans in the room, and then Martha and I will kind of redirect and follow up and hopefully get a lot of substance out of the guy who is now the front runner of the declared Democratic candidates.
The fresh face of Congress.
Yes, and quite an evolution from 2015.
So, Bret, I'm really curious how this came together. Obviously, the DNC tried to shut Fox out. Why do you think that Bernie broke ranks here and decided that he was going to do this, which I think is really important?
Yeah, so we obviously have communication and relationships with all of these campaigns. We still cover them every day. We have embeds who go and travel with them. And we've been in conversation even after the DNC made that wrong move about the debate and, offered these town halls. Bernie's the first to take advantage of it, but there will be more. Can't make an announcement today, but we're working on a lot of things.
It's interesting. I know it's focusing on the economy and the jobs, but it's more than tangentially related to bring up immigration, because, of course, that affects the jobs of a lot of people who are competing with illegal or undocumented immigrants for jobs. And I thought it was a masterstroke that Bernie is blunting Donald Trump's assault or taking over of the immigration issue by simply saying we can't let everybody in. That's going against the grain of the trend of the Democratic Party, and that could be a very winning move. Imagine them both in a debate against each other, and Trump is arguing immigration, and Bernie Sanders isn't really arguing that much against him. Maybe this or that program or the wall, but it's pretty good.
No, that's right. And frankly, they're on a number of different big issues like that. They're on the same side. When you talk about pulling troops back from Syria, Afghanistan, elsewhere, the president and Bernie Sanders are actually similar. When you talk about trade and making sure these countries pay up for trade deals, Bernie Sanders and President Trump are similar. Now, they are worlds apart when it comes to Green New Deal or Medicare for all or, free college for everybody. But there are similarities, and we'll be going down those roads.
Bret, it seems like a day doesn't go by where somebody else doesn't jump into the race on the Democratic side. At some point, we may have, upwards of 20 candidates. And if you do the math on that, it's not going to take a lot percentage-wise in order to win the nomination. If you could handicap things right now, I know that Bernie obviously is the front runner. What's your feeling? Who do you think might win?
You want Bret to play candidate casino?
I do.
He's the moderator of that.
I do.
I see what's happening here. That's how I got my panelists for years to actually give me how they thought. If I had $100 chips, I would put 50 on Bernie. Wow. That's how big I think he is off for the races. I do think when all is said and done, Biden's going to get in this race, I think. I think Kamala Harris will be formidable. I think Beto will survive through the process. And I think there'll probably be, only 4 that make it all the way.
So do you think if he ends up winning that Howard Schultz will end up staying in the race?
I do. If it's Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, I'm almost positive, having done the town hall the week before with Howard Schultz, that Schultz will be in.
Brett, I noticed conspicuous by his absence from your list was Mayor Pete of South Bend nearby. And you had a report yesterday about Mayor Pete. Essentially, this week, he kind of picked a fight with Vice President Pence, saying that, hey, if you have an argument with the way I am, argue with my creator who made me gay. And Pence was having nothing of it. Pence is basically playing rope-a-dope with Mayor Pete, saying, I always liked him. So what's the fight over? But this is really where the rubber meets the road on the culture war, isn't it, Brett? Because it is all, we talk about the economy and everybody says, oh, yeah, people vote on the economy. But it's the visceral things. It's the way the culture is going. And right now, a lot of people voted for Trump, me included, because I wanted a couple of Supreme Court justices who weren't going to take Obergefell over the rails and get it so that synagogues and churches would lose their 501c3 status if they didn't perform gay marriages. There's a lot there to it, and I know people are trying to paper over this stuff, but that fight between Mayor Pete and Mike Pence is something that's not going away.
Yeah, and I think Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
I just can't pronounce his name. That's why I didn't say it.
And no one else can either.
He's fine with Mayor Pete. We've talked to his folks there. I think that he's on the rise. He's a comet. He is taking some of Beto's mojo. And I think that, he's touching that issue that is really sensitive and it's powerful as a social issue. But there are others that Republicans will touch, and that is like late-term abortion. That polls about 80-20 against, but yet, you go down that road with some of these candidates, and they're pretty wide open, beyond a woman has a right to choose. You start getting into what the Virginia governor was talking about. And so I agree with you. Those are the things that animate. But the biggest issues of the day are the ones that, we have to find common ground on, and we haven't as a country.
Yeah, Brett, I would say that one of the biggest issues of the day, and certainly one that I think will be front and center for the election, is health care. And
Yes.
The Republicans have completely dropped the ball on this over and over again. Do you think they will have any skeleton of a plan going into 2020? Because I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win the House and keep the Senate and make sure that President Trump is reelected if they don't have any plan in place.
They have to. I asked Mitch McConnell that on my set the other night. They have to have a plan. And, they're working on one, he said, and President Trump's going to run on one. But right now they're running against the Medicare for All single-payer system that Bernie Sanders is pitching. That would essentially erase people's private insurance, about 180 million people, and put them all on a government program within 4 years. So they're running against that, but they need their own plan to run on. You're right.
Bret Baier, we're talking to Brett, Fox News special report, and don't forget you've got the town hall with Bernie Sanders on Monday from 5:30 to 6:30 with Martha McCallum. But politics, schmolitics, Brett. It's the Masters, Brett, the Masters. So let me tell you what's going on here. So yesterday, Brooks Koepka shoots a 6-under. If people don't know, this guy, he won 2 of the last 3 majors. You know what a major is, Carol? Well, it's important. I'll tell you in the break. And he's really like the greatest golfer on the planet right now. But then in the offseason, for some vanity photo shoot, he lost a bunch of weight. So you got people like Brandel Chambly on the Golf Channel saying that this is horrible what he did. He doesn't have a chance of winning the Masters. Well, yesterday he the leader after the first round. Now, I'll say, Brett, he leads only a 48-year-old guy by a stroke named Phil Mickelson. But apparently Chambly doubled down yesterday after Koepka shot this round, And Rich Lerner told him, hey, he's won 3 majors in 2 years. And Brandel said, a career is not defined by how many majors you win. Well, yes, it is, Brett. What's going on here? Tell me.
I don't know. Maybe Brooks' team is paying off Brandel to fire Brooks up. Because that's actually, when he won the U.S. Open, all the writers were saying, he's done, he doesn't have a shot, and he proved them wrong. And sometimes they get that fire, and that's what spurs them on. I think he looked great yesterday. I watched in between getting ready for special report.
Sure you did, Brett. You were watching while Hemingway was giving you answers. I'm sorry, what was that? What was that you said? No. Phil just chipped in. Go ahead. Yeah.
All you do is you ask the next panelist.
Right. Next.
Yeah.
No, so what do you?
I like Ricky Fowler still.
You still like Ricky Fowler? He had a pretty good round. Did you pick him beforehand? Did you pick Ricky?
Did.
See, I picked Rory because that was, everybody thought Rory was looking great. There's something about the Masters that he can't handle. I think it's possible that Brooks is going to win the career Grand Slam before Rory does.
Man, it looks like it. And Bryson DeChambeau, he's doing the math out there. He's getting it done.
You know what? I have an issue with Bryson DeChambeau because did you see his last shot, his approach on 18 yesterday? He hits the flag. Of course you saw it because you weren't paying attention to this stuff. Talk about Mayor Pete.
I recorded it.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's commitment. If you're recording it, that's a high level of commitment.
So, Carol, he hits the flag stick. And this guy is like a scientist. He computes everything and drives every other golfer on the course crazy because he takes so much time doing it. But he hits the flag stick, and then he talks about velocity. I had people saying to me,
"It's like physics class,
right? Well, he thinks
right?
it's terminal. It's not terminal velocity. It's just velocity." And I think, Brett, he should have looked at the coefficient of restitution of the flag stick. That it knocked the ball back and out of the way. You Bret Baier and I doing golf jokes. That's a show. Forget
this
guy.
Bad Masters joke.
Bad Masters joke. So, what do you think is going to happen today in the Masters?
I think it's going to be a good day today, but then the weekend's going to get ugly. So, I think anything can happen.
Because of the weather? Because of the weather?
Yeah.
Are you more confident? Are you more confident about that or about Bernie Sanders winning the election?
That's a great question.
All right, Brett, we will watch you. Go ahead.
I think Tiger Woods winning this Masters would be the same as Bernie Sanders winning that.
Ooh.
I have a good idea. Let's put Tiger Woods in on the Democratic side. He could run for president because everybody else is running as well.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
There's room.
Carol
That's
with
right.
the last word. Okay. Brett, thanks so much for joining us. Special report tonight at 5, and then you've got that town hall with Bernie Sanders on Monday, 5:30 to 6:30. Thanks so much for joining us, Brett. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Bret Baier, Bruce Wolf, Carol Roth in for Dan.